Welcome to our Nordic Rally of Hope program, organized by the Universal Peace Federation, together with partners. I am Steinar Murud and will be the host for the program on behalf of Linda Houston, who has unfortunately catched a cold. Rally of Hope is an international program series that has been sent 5 times since last August. The program is focused on bringing people together under the principles of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. And the international programs have gathered heads of state, members of parliament, religious leaders, academicians, and others to address this topic. The Rally of Hope programs has reached millions all over the world via many TV stations. This time we are making a Nordic program with speakers from Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Iceland, and Norway. And we hope you will appreciate the program. We are lucky to have Dr. Michael and Fumiko Balcom with us tonight. They are the director, regional director for our region, which is large. It's 72 nations, Russia, Europe, and the Middle East. And Dr. Michael Balcom, he will start the program with a greeting. So welcome, Dr. Balcom.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steiner, and good evening, everybody. Wow, what a great video that was. And as we were looking at it, I thought to myself, I must travel back to the Scandinavia right away. But then I realized, of course, wait, I can't do that. It's illegal. It's illegal to travel out of the United Kingdom right now. In fact, we can't even meet one person in their home. We are under total lockdown. And in a way, this Rally of Hope series is a brave response to the pandemic because the thinking behind it began back in Korea about a year ago, where almost 7,000 people, leaders from religion, politics, NGOs, all kinds of organizations gathered together to consider how can the world come closer together. Looking back, it was the calm before the storm because soon after we all came back from Korea, the pandemic spread all over the world. But amazingly, we've managed to keep the momentum going. And as Steiner mentioned, this is actually the fifth Rally of Hope. And there's been some wonderful speakers, Ban Ki-moon, several US vice presidents, leaders from Africa, from Russia, from the Middle East. It's been really very good. And when you think about hope, uh, you might think, well, is this a luxury? You know, is this a luxury of wealthy, contented, happy nations in Northern Europe? After all, here in the UK, we're always being told that the Nordic countries are the happiest countries in the world. And certainly, we feel that we're very blessed. You know, we have a pleasant climate, we have peaceful societies, we live and tolerate each other. But elsewhere in our region, I also have responsibility for countries like Yemen and Syria and Iraq, where peace is sometimes seems very far away. But the thing is, people in those countries and people in our countries all actually want the same things. We want the same things for our children. We want the same things for our grandchildren. We want them to live in peace, to prosper, to be better than ourselves. And in fact, I think this is because that is actually the dream of all humanity. And even as you'll hear from our founder, Mother Moon, it's the desire, the dream of God. So I'm really happy that we're gathering this afternoon for this Rally of Hope. One of the speakers who made quite an impression on me from the fifth rally, which was about a month ago, was Frederick de Klerk, the former president of South Africa. Of course, he shared the Nobel Peace Prize with Nelson Mandela. Mandela got most of the acclaim, and rightly so. But de Klerk had his role too. And in his speech to the Rally of Hope, he said there were times when it looked dark and impossible. There were so many forces trying to derail a new start for South Africa. But we never gave up hope. And because we kept our hope, the impossible became possible. It is a small beginning, but I'm sure it's going to be meaningful and go well. So thank you all for coming. Please not only enjoy watching, but as you do, think to yourself, what can I do to bring peace and hope to our country, our continent, and the world? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balcom, for this opening greeting. This evening's program will focus on the theme interdependence and mutual prosperity, or another way of saying it with the UN terminology, leave no one behind, which is the spirit behind the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In a globalized world as ours, it is imperative to have an awareness that we all depend on each other in some way or the other. And in all relationships, we need to strive for win-win situations. As an illustration of this principle, We will now open the program with an interreligious or intercultural ceremony. We want to show that we are all part of a large human community, and we all need to contribute to the well-being of that large community. Every nation, culture, religion should find a way to contribute to the larger whole. We need to realize that there is only one race, and that is the human race. So in this ceremony, which we are going to see now, each representative is pouring a jug of water into a larger common bowl. The small jug of water symbolizes one's own contribution into the larger bowl, which symbolizes the global society. Wherever we come from, we all have something that can serve the world. Thank you to all the participants in the interfaith, intercultural ceremony. Thank you for your contribution. Now we have come to the series of speakers, and our first speaker is Sten Hildebrandt from Denmark. Hildebrandt is a professor emeritus of management studies at Aarhus School of Business at the University of Aarhus. He is also the author of the book Bæredygtig Global Utvikling. He has lectured on this topic several times. So welcome, Professor Hildebrandt.
You may remember John Lennon's song Imagine, where it is said, imagine all the people living life in peace. And later it is said, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. That was a beautiful song and a wonderful dream and hope. Hope is an important and beautiful feeling, a heart feeling, a heart expression. We cannot live without hope. Hope is mobilizing, activating, initiating. Hope is moving the world. Hope is keeping me alive and is moving me forward. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we have experienced and learned a lot, especially true lessons are important. One, what you do now is making a difference, and two, everything on earth is connected. We are in reality living in a cluster of crises. And as we all know, a crisis is also a possibility. We are living in an era of possibilities. We may be able to handle the climate and global warming crisis. We may overcome the migration crisis. We may be able to reverse the trend to reduce the biodiversity. We may be able to loosen the geopolitical tensions. We may come to a position where the United Nations are given power and authority to work more actively and specific for peace in the world. We may hope for all that, and we may work for all that. You will remember John F. Kennedy's famous speech on the 4th of July, 1962, the US Day of Independence, where he called for a declaration of interdependence. And that is exactly what we are. We depend on each other. 5 years later, Martin Luther King expressed something similar when he said, "In a real sense, all life is interrelated. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be, and you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be," he said. We live in a period of great instability, and we know from experience that such periods can result in radical reordering of our societies. What that reordering is going to look like depends on us, on our institutions, on our leaders, and on you and me as citizens, consumers, workers, voters, parents, and grandparents. Over the last years, we have seen many assumptions, values, and increasingly the institutions and norms that have shaped our world fall apart. We have experienced huge improvements in people's daily lives all over the world, and yet in so many parts of the world, citizens are disappointed, and this has revealed itself in politics, in the media, and in public discourse. Rising levels of anger and anxiety are associated with people feeling more insecure and lacking the means or power to shape their future. On the international scene, we see more and more nationalism and protectionism. In a recent book called What We Owe Each Other, the author Minouche Shafik is talking about the concept of a social contract. She defines a social contract as the policies and norms govern how we live together in a society. This concept, she argues, is a useful construct for understanding and defining alternative solutions to the challenges we face. Indeed, there are alternatives. There are pathways towards a better world. There are good reasons for hope. Allow me to remind you of the Sustainable Development Goals, the so-called SDGs, decided by the UN General Assembly in September 2015. 17 goals, 17 criteria, 17 policy areas for moving the world forward to be a better world for billions of people. The fundamental principle behind the 17 sustainable goals is leave no one behind. In reality, it's about solidarity and about a deep understanding and acceptance of the principle of the Declaration of Interdependence, or an expression of an understanding of the Martin Luther King quotation. The Sustainable Development Goals are hopes, are peace, are hopes for peace, and more than that, they are practical policies and explicit recommendations for moving the world in the direction of peace and prosperity.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you again, Mr. Hildebrand, for quoting Martin Luther King's words on mutuality. And thank you for sharing optimism and hope for the future, in spite of the crisis in today's world. Thank you very much. Our second speaker this evening is Mrs. Anneli Jäätteenmäki, former Prime Minister of Finland. She was even the first woman Prime Minister in Finland. She has also been Minister of Justice and a long-time member of the European Parliament. So welcome, Mrs. Jäätteenmäki.
It's a great pleasure for me to be part of this Nordic Rally of Hope. Just now, we really need hope. We live in challenging time. In Nordic countries, we have tight restrictions to meet each other. In Finland, only 6 to 10 persons together. Restaurants are closed. Civil societies have difficulties in their work. They can hold only virtual meetings, virtual talks, without personal contacts. We wait for roadmap to ease lockdown. But still in Nordic countries, we can be happy. The vaccination programs are going on. The healthcare system is working. The COVID-19 situation is much worse in many other countries, and also without hope of vaccine. Ladies and gentlemen, First Ladies Group met in Seoul a year ago. I had the honor to be part of this excellent group and give a short speech. We discuss the situation of women in the world. Since then, the pandemic situation has been deepening pre-existing inequalities. Even limited gains made in the past decades are at risk of being rolled back. Across every sphere, from health to the economy, security to social protection, the impacts of COVID-19 have made the life of women and girls still more vulnerable. There will be other pandemics and other major health or other emergencies in the future. No single government or multilateral agency can address this threat alone. Also, civil societies can do much to help the situation, and they do much. This pandemic has been a strong and a painful reminder that nobody is safe until everyone is safe. Now it's time to seize the opportunity to come together as a global community for peaceful cooperation that extends beyond the crisis. The civil societies can do their best to help the situation and to give hope to people. No more than ever, it's crucial for people to feel that we are stronger together. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure to be able to give my presentation today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jätenmäki, for your speech, and also for pointing out the essential point that we all need to work together and that no one is safe until everybody is safe. That is really the spot on to the topic of our evening. So we are going to Sweden, and our third speaker this evening is Mr. Peter Åkerbeck from Sweden, as mentioned. Peter Åkerbeck has a doctorate in religious history and conducts research on new religious movements at Dalarna University. He also works as a director of studies in sociology at Stockholm University. So, Mr. Åkerbeck, we wish you welcome and look forward to your speech.
My dear friends, I'm very happy to be here. I'm very excited to be a part of this night, and I have also in many years taken part of the great work that Mother Moon and Father Moon has done over the years, and I have had the privilege of following the Unification Church and the Family Federation for a long time. So I'm very happy to be here and very happy to be a part of this night. I've been asked to approach and address the subject of mutual values. There is a lot of conflicts going on in the world today, and in order to find a sustainable solutions, we need to find common values, common morals, and common goals. And I think this can only be achieved if we understand each other in the real sense, and if we can agree on some sort of mutual values. Now, as a scholar of religion, I automatically do this from a sort of academic standpoint, maybe also a bit philosophical point of view. When you as a scholar is approach the subject, you automatically want to do a definition. You want to grasp the subject and make it a good definition as you possibly can. That's what we do. That's our sort of our biggest strength, if you say. But as scholars, it is also one of our weaknesses, because sometimes we get stuck there. We work on definitions for years, and it takes us a very long time to find a definition. Now, I've tried to do this with mutual values, and I promise you, I won't talk for years. I will keep myself a bit shorter, I promise you that. When I sat down and started thinking about the many aspects of mutual values, because there are many aspects to this subject, I think mutual values, from the beginning, I started out with that it means that we're talking about a group of people involved in it, perhaps a country, or maybe even everyone in the world. I don't know, but it has to be a number of people. And it also involved that it's some kind of agreement. Something is mutual to all these people involved. And that's the first step. And the second step I was thinking about is values. And for me, values is a set of guiding principles that help us to decide how to act in certain situations when interacting with other people. Values is no good for yourself. We have to have them when we interact. And maybe also to help us differentiate between wrong and right. And that's especially important for us as parents. But in essence, we can conclude that this subject is something that mankind has struggled with since the dawn of time. And I should say that this has been the central subject to just about all religions that is known to mankind and has been practiced over the years. This is a core thing. So when I sat down and thinking about this, I found myself, I had to pick up a paper and a pen. Then I started to write down the things I thought was important to me as an individual in my interactions with other people. Things like honesty, being sincere, telling the truth, being optimistic, something that I find very important for me. And here I started thinking, well, I'm not always optimistic. I'm sometimes pessimistic. Now, what does this mean? So I had to put down my list of mutual values, and I had to put it away for the night. The next day I started again, over again. And now I have a pretty good list for myself, but I will not share this list with you. That would be wrong. Why is this wrong? Well, first of all, I'm not someone who tells other people how they should live their lives, or what kind of values they should have. Only my kids get to hear that. Them I tell them all the time, and they're tired of it. Second, I think that this is something that we all should do. So my suggestion to everyone that is listening to this, take a paper, a real paper, not digital, a real pen, and start your list. I know that this sounds like I'm your teacher or something, but I'm not. I'm not going to be a teacher. You have to get to the university, then I can teach you. But if you try and do this, start your own list. Now, after a while, put it aside. Then look at it again. Keep it with you. Show it to someone you trust. Maybe someone that has done the same thing as you. And this will be the real starting point for getting further with your list. Now, if we all do this, perhaps then we will get a list together. And in the end, it's not only ours, but also something that we can really agree on, something that we can reach all of, something that we can share with each other. We ourselves do this list of stuff that we want to have as mutual values. Because mutual values does not come for free. Mutual values does not come without effort. We have to work, and we have to work hard in doing this. So there is then, and only then, can we truly talk about mutual values, if we all make an effort in this. And I, for one, truly hope that we will get there someday, that we will have mutual values that we can share with each other. And I thank you all for your attention, and God bless.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Åkerbeck, for giving us some interesting homework that we can take with us from this program. To make a personal list of values, share it with others, and see what we have in common. I think this can help us to find the mutual values that is very much needed for building a good and sustainable society. Thank you very much. So, as mentioned, this is a Nordic program, but at this point, we want to include a section from our co-founder's message, taken from the last International Rally of Hope program. Our co-founder, Mother Hak Jahan Moon, comes from Korea, and all our Rally of Hopes are sent from Korea. So as a warm-up to her message, we will now show a piece of cultural performance from the other side of the Eurasian continent, from Korea. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the performance, which was done by the Little Angels Children's Folk Ballet of Korea. So now we are coming to listen to some words from our co-founder, Mrs. Hak Jahan Moon. She is the inspiration behind the Rally of Hope series, as well as many other initiatives for peace, such as the Sonhag Peace Prize, the World Summit, World Christian Leadership Conference, and many, many more. So by that, we want to welcome Mother Moon.
When all nations of the world become the children of Heavenly Parent, the Creator, on the day when all of humanity can attend God as the Heavenly Parent, that will be the day when we can become one family of humanity under God. And all 200 nations around the world can stand as one family, and all nations stand as siblings to one another. Then an era of happiness will be ushered in. And leaders living around the world today and all of humanity is invited to make a firm resolve, open their hearts and ears to the voice of heaven. And just as the sunflowers align with the sun, may all the nations of the world align themselves with heaven's call and realize true peace for humanity, form one family of humanity under the Heavenly Parent. May that day come where all problems of humanity can be solved. Please think about this. When all nations think about advancing their national interests, the tremendous sums of money they pour into national defense or the development of military weapons is astounding. If 1/10 of this money could be used for the sake of citizens, if a nation can live for the sake of its citizens and live for the happiness of its citizens, can a nation engage in war? It is possible to be wealthy and prosperous without seeking to advance the cause of war. The time has come to let go of the desire to invest resources into weapons. Heaven is giving us the final warning. Now, we can no longer delay or postpone heaven's call. The time has come for us to embrace with understanding. As Koreans look to heaven, to the full moon, revere heaven, and thank heaven for the bountiful harvest, when all of the siblings living in different parts of the country gather together, offer gratitude to heaven, offer gratitude to the parents and ancestors, when families, siblings, and neighbors come together and offer gratitude to heaven together, then this world will no longer need to worry or be concerned about the future.
지상 천국이 아니고
It will
무엇이겠습니까?
be the kingdom of heaven on earth. Isn't that so?
Thank you very much, Mother Moon, for reminding us about the need to turn our attention to heaven. You have often reminded us that human efforts alone are not enough, and that we need to listen to God. Your words today was also similar to the biblical prophecy about beating the swords into plowshares. So we really hope that this time has come. So now we are going to travel back again from Korea to the very west in our region, that is to Iceland. And we will listen to the message of Reverend Kristin August Fridfinnsson, who is a specialized minister in clinical pastoral care. He has a master in mediation and conflict resolution and is certified in clinical hypnotherapy. He is also a freelance lecturer and an independent scholar at the Reykjavik Academia. So welcome, Kristin Fridfinnsson from Iceland.
Dear friends in Scandinavia and Finland, nice to be with you in this rally. I was listening to Mother Moon and it was a great experience, and I was very happy when I had listened to her very good speech. We want all residents of the world to be one family and live in peace and harmony with each other and with the nature. I think that's the kernel point in all this. But the important question is, how is that possible? First and foremost, we have to remember that we are extended hands of God, or if you like me saying it otherwise, using other phrases, extended hands of the law of life. And therefore we have to be liable occupants on the earth. Let us keep in mind 5 very important words we have to use in this discussion. We have to develop this discussion, this dialogue about the family, peace and balance in the world. Let us therefore remember 5 words: chaos, cosmos; balance, imbalance; and number 5, new word, homeostasis. What is homeostasis? Homeostasis is one of the main laws in life. The nature inside us, everywhere, is always aiming balance. And that process is called homeostasis, when it is, everything in the nature is in harmony. And if this is the law of the whole nature, why is it not maybe one of the most important laws of human life and societies? I would like this new word to be a citizen in the discussion of peace, harmony, happiness and prosperity of the world. In other words, life is conflict between chaos and conflict, balance and imbalance. If we are accountable, we aim cosmos, and we have at least tried our best and been cooperative within our nature, within our societies, and within the family of the world. All activities of peace makers, peace movements, and all people honorable and with goodwill is aiming for from chaos to cosmos. Cosmos is the real life where everything is in law and order. This prosperity state of the world. If the nature aims balance that way, why don't we use it in our dialogues about peace and happiness in the world? Homeostasis and cosmos describe the situation we want. In other words, balance in the human life, in the nature and between the nations of the world is the healthy state of all life. Being in agreement of that, I suggest two things. First, that we keep the law of nature in mind, and number two, learn from evidence-based methods in mediation and conflict resolutions between common people, institutions of the world and companies. And therefore we have to give the nature the benefit of the doubt, and number two, help nations find common interest through dialogue, where we are cooperative, finding good common airport for our discussions. We know that all parts have to be willing to participate in mediation. If not, mediation is not possible. And that is our difficult task, to convince and persuade the authorities of all nations to join the movement of love and justice.
Thank you very much, Kristin Fridfinsson, for elaborating on Mother Moon's point that we need to consider God by saying that we are the extended hands of God. And thank you also for sharing many interesting thoughts about the need for balance, or as you said, homeostasis in our world. That is very true. And now we are coming to the final speaker today, which is Mr. Lars Riise from Norway. Mr. Riise was a member of the Norwegian Parliament from 1997 to 2005. And he is still a peace activist who has engaged himself in support of many causes for peace and justice around the world. I remember vividly the peace conference we had in Lars Riese's hotel a few years back. That was a wonderful experience. So Mr. Riise is with us live, and I say welcome to you, Lars Riise. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Steinar. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation to participate in this very important meeting, the Nordic Rally of Hope. When we look at the continent of Europe, which I think is the most natural today, we are facing serious challenges. I would say that the refugee crisis, for instance, has challenged our value system. We have seen the growth of the political extreme right in many countries, and our question has to be, how can we deal with this kind of modern clash between civilizations? The European Convention on Human Rights contains our high ideals adopted in 1948, soon 73 years ago. This convention later led to the establishment of the International Declaration on Human Rights. These high ideals are now maybe more challenged than ever, but we could nevertheless say that these are our common values in our corner of the world. In a way, we are observing that Samuel P. Huntington's theory of clash of civilizations that he launched in 1992 is materializing. We have to admit that last century was the worst in human history. In fact, the American historian Eric Hobsbawm called the 20th century the century of extremism. He has calculated that approximately 188 million people died because of extreme ideologies. Marxism, Leninism, socialism, communism, fascism, Nazism. Huntington believed that while the age of ideology has ended, the world had only reverted to a normal state of affairs characterized by cultural conflict. In his thesis, he argued that the primary axis of conflict in the future will be along cultural and religious lines. And this is what I think we see a lot of today. Huntington did not mean to advocate that conflicts between civilizations were desirable. He was more interested in analyzing what the future might be like. And the question we have to ask is how we, participating now in this conference as political and religious leaders, can contribute to create an atmosphere of dialogue and peaceful coexistence instead of just observing clashes after clashes between great civilizations. We have seen lately, let's say the last 20 years, that most conflicts in Europe has been between Orthodox Christian cultures and Islamic or Muslim cultures. But I would say this, many leaders in Western countries will tend to see Islam as the big threat today, maybe the biggest threat in international politics. But let us not forget that all the ideologies that I mentioned that impacted last century, which was called the century of extremism, it had one common factor. All these ideologies had their root in societies in the Christian West. Islam had nothing to do with the development of ideologies that killed 188 million people just in one century. Karl Marx came from a Jewish family which later became Protestant Christians. Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin both went to theological seminary to become priests. And we know that Adolf Hitler was for years singing in the Catholic boys choir in his local Catholic monastery in the Austrian city where he grew up. What can we learn from this to bring into today's enormous challenges with integration for the thousands of migrants on our doorsteps in Europe? As leaders in politics, culture, and religion, we carry heavy responsibility on how to show a pathway to a sustainable coexistence. The most simple recipe for how to create an atmosphere of dialogue instead of hate and rejection would be to find the best in each other's religions and cultures. This was actually the recipe presented by Mahatma Gandhi when he met the famous Christian missionary E. Stanley Jones in India. And Stanley Jones writes about this in his book. And Gandhi asked him, why don't you look for something positive in the religion that you find here in India, instead of just thinking about how to promote your own religion? That was something which made an enormous impact on E. Stanley Jones. Or we could follow the example of the late President Boris Tchaikovsky and look at the teachings of the historic person of Jesus. And that is a strategy that united the heads of state in one of the most troubled regions in Europe, the Balkans, where Orthodox, Muslims, Catholic, atheists, and Protestants met together at all of these heads of state. And let me give you a small example from a book I read finally in my speech from the Norwegian philosopher Guttorm Fløystad. He wrote about the art of cooperation. And let's look at this in the broader European or global context, if you want, on how to cooperate. It will be a fantastic recipe for all 7.67 billion people, actually, to be united around. And I think maybe this will also meet the standards that Mr. Peter Åkerback from Sweden stated that he wanted. He wants the common values, the common standards. So I'm quoting what I found in this book, derived from the teachings of Jesus. We believe that all human beings have equal value. We forgive each other. 3, we clearly express our expectations to each other. 4, we love each other. Our biggest challenges as leaders would be to create an agreement that these values will not only lead to an effective coexistence, but if practiced, to fellowship, unity, and love. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lars Riise, for your thoughts and your speech, and for elaborating on the challenges we face in Europe and the world today, and also about the need to find common values, universal values, and dialogue. Truly very good points for this conference. We are now coming to the end of the program, and with this I want to thank all the speakers and participants, and not to forget all the viewers of the Nordic Rally of Hope. In closing, we will end by the song called Eternity, written by the Norwegian songwriter Toril Nygaard. This song won the second place in Eurovision Song Contest in 1996. And Toril Nygaard will give a short introduction to her song, and it will be performed by Elisabeth Andreasen. So welcome, Toril.
Hello, this is Toril. I am the author and the composer of the song Eternity. And I wrote this because of people they meet, and you love someone, and sometimes the ways in lives, we go different ways. But if you have something in your heart, if somebody is in your heart, they will stay there. And my intention is that they're going to stay there forever. And even if it's difficult in life, we are lonely, we lose some hope, but we have to have that hope and that belief that that what we have, it is forever. And it's really a hope that can mean something for people, these words of my song.
Dagen går mot kväll, borta blir snart glömt. Men allt vid gaden står igen, ett frö som gror och växer fram. Slika kärlighetens väg, når den möter dig och mig. Först när vi lär och förstår, vill den mötas om igen. Sen om dagen är gång, tids vinner hän och blir till
Thank you very much, both Toril and Elisabeth Andreasen. And finally, once again, thank you everybody for participating, and have a great and peaceful week. Thank you.